It was past midnight when I decided to clean out Marcus's car. He had a business trip starting early, and I wanted to make sure everything was perfect for him. We'd been married 12 years and I still did things like this, small gestures that made me feel like I was taking care of my marriage. I vacuumed the floor mats, wiped down the dashboard, and organized the center console. My hands moved on autopilot while my mind thought about what I'd pack for dinner that week. That's when I felt it, a faint vibration coming from under the passenger seat. My fingers brushed something smooth and cool. I pulled out a sleek black phone, the kind I'd never seen Marcus carry before. My stomach tightened. I pressed the button and the screen came alive. A message flashed across the top. "Can't wait to see you tonight, love." My hand started shaking. I didn't recognize the number. I didn't recognize the woman's name. But I recognized the feeling washing over me. Cold, heavy, and absolutely suffocating. I kept reading. Previous messages appeared. Hotel bookings. Photos I couldn't unsee. Then another text. "I'll tell her it's another conference." Those words. Those exact words. He always told me about his conferences. I stood there frozen, the phone burning in my palm like it might explode. That's when I heard his car pull into the driveway. Marcus walked through the garage door and found me standing in the kitchen, the black phone hanging at my side. His face changed in a fraction of a second. The relaxed expression disappeared. For just a moment, I saw panic flash across his features. Then it vanished, replaced by something worse, a smile. He walked toward me slowly like a predator. "You were never supposed to find that," he said calmly. His voice didn't waver. It didn't crack. He wasn't sorry. He was just stating a fact. I tried to speak, but my voice broke. "What is this? Who is she? Marcus, how could you?" He reached out and grabbed the phone from my hand. His fingers moved quickly across the screen, deleting everything. Messages disappeared. Timestamps vanished. Evidence erased before my eyes. "You always wanted honesty," he said coldly. "There it is." Then he turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the kitchen doorway, my entire world crumbling into ash. I watched him disappear down the hallway toward our bedroom. I didn't follow him. I couldn't move. My legs felt like they'd been replaced with something hollow. 12 years. 12 years of believing in someone, and it took 2 minutes to destroy it all. I sank into a chair, pressing my palms against my eyes, wondering how many times this had happened before I found that phone. I couldn't sleep. Around 3 in the morning, my laptop pinged with a notification. I dragged myself to the home office and opened the screen. Hundreds of files were syncing down from a cloud account I'd never seen before. My heart stopped. Photos, messages, voice notes, all from the black phone. All automatically backing up to a shared storage account that I apparently had access to. I scrolled through the pictures, each one hitting like a punch. There were photos at hotels I recognized, hotels where Marcus said he was attending conferences. There were screenshots of text conversations. But the worst part was reading their anniversary messages. Our anniversary. The same restaurant. The same flowers. The same words he'd said to me. Every single one repeated exactly to her. He hadn't even bothered to change his approach. It was like watching him perform the same play with a different actress. My hands shook as I downloaded everything, saving copies to an external drive. Rage and disbelief twisted inside my chest. Then I found a photo that made me freeze completely. It was a family gathering at Marcus's mother's house. Everyone was smiling at the camera, posing for what looked like a Sunday afternoon. And there in the background, partially hidden behind Marcus's shoulder, was a woman. The same woman from the messages. The same woman he'd been taking to hotels. She'd been at his family's house. She was standing near my mother-in-law like she belonged there. I zoomed in closer, my mind racing. How long had this been happening? How many times had his family seen her? I stared at the photo for what felt like hours, memorizing her face. She had dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a light blue dress. She was smiling at something someone had said. She looked comfortable, like she'd been there before, like she knew everyone. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't a secret affair hidden in the shadows. This was something his entire family knew about. This was something they'd welcomed into their home. I recognized her now that I was looking for it. I'd seen her at Marcus's mother's house before. I remembered Marcus introducing her as his coworker. His coworker. That's what he'd called her. I smiled and made small talk about her job. We'd probably exchanged pleasantries about the weather or something equally meaningless. The betrayal expanded, growing larger than I could contain. Then my phone buzzed. A text from his mother. Don't overreact. It's not what you think. She texted me at 4 in the morning. How did she know I'd found something? Had Marcus called her? Had he warned her that I might ask questions? I stared at those 7 words like they were written in a language I couldn't understand. Don't overreact. As if finding your husband's affair was something you could simply overreact to. As if betrayal had a reasonable response threshold. I threw my phone across the room. I confronted Marcus the next morning. He was sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee like it was a normal day. Like our marriage wasn't bleeding out on the floor. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite everything breaking inside me. He looked up calmly. About what? About what? The audacity. The complete absence of shame. I know about her, Marcus. I know about hotel rooms. I know she was at your mother's house. I know everything. He set down his coffee cup slowly. Then he did something that made my skin crawl. He smiled. A thin, calculated smile. Every man has needs, Gabriella. Some men go to bars. Some men gamble. I have her. At least I come home to you, don't I? The words landed like a slap. His mother had said almost the exact same thing when I finally called her, demanding answers. He still comes home to you, she'd repeated 3 times. Like that made it acceptable. Like faithfulness meant showing up physically while your soul belonged to someone else. Marcus didn't apologize. He didn't grovel. He didn't even try to explain. He just sat there, playing the calm manipulator, acting like I was the unreasonable one for being upset. That night I overheard him on the phone in his office, his voice low. She's not going to leave me, he whispered into the receiver. She never does. No matter what I do, she always comes back. She's weak. My world froze. That's when I realized I'd been living with a stranger for 12 years. I stood in the shower that night, water running down my face, mixing with tears I couldn't stop. I replayed every moment of our marriage like I was watching someone else's life. Every time he came home late. Every business trip. Every lie that seemed so believable because I wanted to believe him. Every sweet word that was probably carefully designed to keep me compliant and quiet. Something shifted inside my chest. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was clear. It was rage. It was determination. I whispered to myself, barely audible over the shower spray. Not this time. Those 3 words changed everything. I turned off the water and stepped out, wrapping myself in a towel. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and made a promise. I was done being weak. I was done being the woman who accepted crumbs of affection and called it marriage. I was done being his backup plan. That night, I took photos of every single piece of evidence before deleting the cloud backup. I didn't want him knowing I still had copies. I didn't want him to have any warning about what was coming. I saved everything to an encrypted drive and hid it in my office at work. Then I began to plan. Quietly. Carefully. With precision. I bought a small black notebook from the office supply store. I called it the Ledger. It became my quiet rebellion, my secret weapon. Every day I logged everything. Times. Receipts. Text messages I'd photographed before they disappeared. Voice notes I'd recorded in secret. Hotel confirmations. Restaurant bills. I documented his lies with the same care he'd used to create them. I noted when he told me he was working late and then arrived home smelling like her perfume. I wrote down the dates when he took business calls in his office. His voice too low for me to hear, but his tone telling me everything. The ledger grew thicker. Page by page. Evidence piling up like ammunition. One evening while going through our joint bank statements, I found something that made me sit up straighter. A transfer. $15,000. Gone. Moved to an account I didn't recognize. My hands moved across the keyboard almost on their own. I dug deeper. Investigated. Found the account was connected to a business. A business owned by her. He'd been funding her company with our money. Money we'd built together. Money from our savings. Money meant for our future. I documented everything in the ledger. Every transfer. Every amount. Every transaction that proved he wasn't just betraying me emotionally. He was stealing from us financially. The next morning I went to our bank. I dressed carefully, applied makeup, and practiced my smile in the mirror. I had to look like everything was normal. I walked into the branch and asked to speak to someone about an account transfer. The teller, a woman named Michelle, pulled up our account. I asked her to confirm a payment, pretending it was something Marcus and I had discussed together. She looked at the screen then back at me. "Of course, ma'am," she said. "I can see that transfer right here." She moved her mouse around, clicking through screens. Then she lowered her voice. "You didn't hear this from me, but your husband co-signed a business account with a woman named Victoria. This account has been receiving regular transfers for about 8 months. 8 months. Not weeks. Not months. 8 months. I'd only discovered the phone yesterday, but this had been going on far longer than that." I thanked Michelle with a smile I didn't feel and walked back out into the bright sunlight. My mind was already calculating. 8 months of transfers. 8 months of funding Victoria's business. 8 months of building something with another woman while telling me everything was fine. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. "Have a great trip," I told Marcus, kissing his cheek as he headed toward his car. "The conference is going to be amazing, I'm sure. 2 days in that nice resort. You deserve the break." He smiled completely at ease. He had no idea I'd been tracking his location. No idea that I knew the resort was only 2 hours away. I had no idea that I was planning to follow him. I waited 30 minutes after he left before getting in my own car. The drive was quiet. My hands gripped the steering wheel. My mind raced through everything I'd discovered. When I arrived at the resort, I parked in a corner spot and walked through the lobby calmly, like I belonged there. I found the restaurant and positioned myself at the bar, ordering a drink I wouldn't finish. And then I saw him. Marcus was sitting at a corner table with Victoria. She wore a red dress. Her hand was on his arm. But she wasn't alone. Marcus's mother, Catherine, was sitting right there with them. My mother-in-law. The woman who'd texted me not to overreact. The woman who'd welcomed Victoria into family dinners. The woman who'd known about this the entire time. They were laughing, sharing a meal, like they were a family. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I needed to hear this. I needed to know what they were saying about me. I stayed hidden behind a decorative partition, my phone recording everything. Their voices carried across the dining room. Victoria leaned in close to Marcus. "Once Gabriella's out of the picture, the company's yours," Catherine said, nodding like she was approving a business proposal. "You'll have the freedom to really build something with Victoria. No complications." Complications. That's what I was. Complication. Marcus laughed at something. Then he said words that froze my blood. "I'll file soon. She won't fight back. She never does. I'll make sure she walks away with nothing." My phone's microphone captured every syllable. Nothing. He was planning to take everything. My house. My savings. My future. And he was doing it with his mother's blessing and his mistress's encouragement. I stood there watching these 3 people I trusted plot my destruction like they were planning a dinner menu. My hands shook as I continued recording. This was the moment everything changed. This was the evidence I needed. This was the proof that the people I'd loved most had turned against me completely. The next morning I called a lawyer. Not from my home phone. Not from an email they could trace. I met with her in person at her office across town. Her name was Patricia Reeves, and she was exactly what I needed. Sharp, experienced, and completely immune to my situation's emotional weight. I laid everything out for her. The phone. The photographs. The bank transfers. The recorded conversation. The forged signatures I'd found on a draft divorce agreement on Marcus's desk. Patricia listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "You're in a strong position," she said simply. "Your husband made mistakes. He documented everything. And most importantly, your company shares are legally joint property. You control half of everything he's built." I felt something shift inside me. A smile. The first genuine smile in days. Patricia continued. "If you play this correctly, you won't just survive this divorce. You'll come out clean. He'll come out exposed. And there's nothing he can do to stop it." As I left her office, I felt lighter than I had in months. The pieces were falling into place. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to Marcus's betrayal. I was preparing my response. For the next 3 weeks, I acted like nothing had changed. I cooked Marcus's favorite meals. I laughed at his jokes. I kissed him goodnight. I played the role of the devoted wife while secretly transferring assets, documenting everything, and building my case with surgical precision. He relaxed completely. He thought he'd won. He thought I was weak, just like he'd told that person on the phone. He thought I'd accept whatever terms he offered. He had no idea what was coming. I recorded every conversation. I photographed every document. I documented every lie. My phone became a weapon, and my laptop became a fortress of evidence. Patricia met with me twice a week, each session bringing me closer to the moment of truth. Then one afternoon, I found something on Marcus's desk. A draft divorce agreement. My name was on it, along with a signature that looked almost like mine. Almost. Patricia confirmed what I already suspected. The signature was forged. He was planning to have me sign a divorce agreement where I'd supposedly agreed to give him everything. My company shares. My house. Everything. The forgery was the final piece of the puzzle. I called Patricia immediately. He forged my signature on a divorce agreement, I told her. He's planning to use it to take everything from me. There was silence on the other end of the phone. Then Patricia said, "That's fraud. That's federal fraud. You have him completely." Plan formed in my mind. A plan that would expose everything. I set up a dinner meeting with Marcus, Victoria, and Catherine. I acted cheerful when I arranged it. I suggested a nice restaurant. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. I wanted them all there when everything fell apart. I wanted them to see each other's faces when the truth came crashing down. I wanted them to understand that I wasn't the weak woman they thought I was. I sent the invitations. They accepted immediately. They were so confident, so sure of their victory. They had no idea that I'd spent the last 3 weeks preparing to burn their entire world down. And I was going to do it with a smile on my face. "I'm so glad we're all here together," I said, looking around the dinner table. Marcus smiled at me like I was an idiot. Victoria sipped her wine nervously. Catherine looked pleased with herself. "Family is important after all," I continued calmly. "Don't you think so, Marcus?" He nodded, his confidence completely unshaken. Then I casually placed my phone on the table. "Oh, and I wanted to mention, I know all about the shared bank account. I know about the forged signature on the divorce agreement. I know about the business transfers. I know everything." Victoria's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. She choked slightly, coughing into her napkin. Catherine's face went pale. Marcus's expression shifted from confidence to confusion in a single heartbeat. "I also know about the conversation you had at the resort," I said quietly. "I have it all on recording. All of it." My phone buzzed. Marcus's lawyer called him. Before he could answer, my own phone rang. Patricia. She'd been contacted by his legal team. They knew. They finally understood what I'd done. Everything was in motion now. There was no stopping it. The trap had been sprung. I stood on the stage at my husband's company's annual event 3 days later. The auditorium was filled with clients, investors, and employees. 200 people. Marcus tried to stop me, but security escorted him back to his seat. I had rights as a co-owner. I had every right to be here. "I need to share something with all of you," I began, my voice steady and clear. The room fell silent. I clicked a button on the remote I held. A 3-minute audio recording played through the speakers. Everyone heard it. The conversation at the resort. Catherine saying my name was a complication. Victoria suggests Marcus take everything. Marcus agreed to forge documents. The entire plot, captured in crystal clear sound. The room erupted. Clients stood up shocked. Investors whispered furiously to each other. Employees gasped in disbelief. Marcus's face turned red. He stood up and stormed off the stage, but it was too late. Everyone had heard the truth. His business partners looked at him like he was a stranger. His reputation, built over 20 years, crumbled in 3 minutes. I stepped down from the stage calmly and walked out. Behind me, chaos. Exactly what I wanted. The fallout was immediate. Within 24 hours, 3 major clients had withdrawn their contracts. Investors demanded answers. The company's stock value plummeted. Marcus's business partner sent him a cease and desist letter. Victoria deleted all her social media accounts. She disappeared completely. Catherine tried calling me multiple times, but I didn't answer. When she finally reached me by showing up at my house, all I said was, "I'm done fixing your messes." Then I closed the door. A week later, a journalist from the local business publication reached out, asking for an interview. I agreed, but I kept everything anonymous. No names, no identifying details. Just the story of emotional and financial manipulation in marriage. Just the story of a woman who discovered the truth and taken back her power. The article ran on Sunday. Everyone in town knew who it was about. Everyone understood exactly what had happened. And everyone understood that I wasn't the weak woman they thought I was. The newspaper article changed everything. It wasn't just about infidelity. It was about fraud. It was about a man who tried to steal from his wife using forged documents. It was about a family that had conspired against her. It was about manipulation and lies hidden behind a perfect public image. Online, people shared the story. They commented on the company's scandal. They questioned how many other people had been betrayed by someone they trusted. Marcus's phone was probably ringing constantly, investors, lawyers, former clients. He'd created this situation. He documented everything. He'd left himself completely exposed. His company began its collapse in earnest. Key employees resigned. Important projects were canceled. Contracts were terminated. Within 2 weeks, he had to shut down 3 of his 5 office locations. The empire he'd spent 20 years building was crumbling in real time. And I was watching it happen with perfect, peaceful clarity. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just satisfied. He'd made every choice that led to this moment. He'd written his own ending. I'd simply finished the story he'd started. He showed up at my door on a Tuesday evening. Marcus looked like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was messy. His shirt was wrinkled. He'd lost weight. He looked broken. He looked like he'd finally understood what he'd done. "We can fix this," he said, his voice cracking. "Gabriella, please. I made a mistake. Terrible mistake. But we've been together for 12 years. That has to mean something. Please." I looked at him like I was looking at a stranger. Because he was a stranger. The man I'd married had died the moment I found that black phone. This person in front of me was just someone wearing his face. "No," I said quietly. "We can't fix this. You can live with it." I handed him an envelope. Inside were the divorce papers and a complete financial statement. He looked down at the numbers. His face went even whiter. "What is this?" "Your new reality," I said, closing the door. He stood on my porch, envelope in hand, finally understanding that he'd lost everything. There was nothing he could say. Nothing he could do. The ending was already written. The lawyer's words rang true. I'd separated every single asset and debt. The house was in my name only. The savings account was in my name only. But every credit card debt, every business loan, every financial obligation was now his responsibility alone. He tried to leave me with nothing, but instead, he was the one left with everything. Everything being massive debt with his name on it. The mistress, Victoria, decided to sue him for fraud related to the business agreements. She claimed he'd promised her things that never materialized. Apparently, he'd made the same kinds of promises to her that he'd made to me. She was just as betrayed. The irony was beautiful. His mother, Catherine, stopped calling after the 3rd time I didn't answer. She released a statement through a family friend saying she'd been misunderstood and that she'd never supported infidelity. No one believed her. Marcus had told his entire family to stay away from me or face consequences. They did. His siblings stopped coming to Sunday dinners. His cousins unfollowed him on social media. His extended family pretended he didn't exist. He'd burned every bridge. He destroyed every relationship. And there was nothing left but ash. The lawyer called with the settlement information finalized. Everything was official. The divorce was complete. I was officially separated from Marcus legally, financially, and emotionally. But Catherine called me the day after the settlement was finalized. Her voice was different now. Smaller. Ashamed. "I should have handled things differently," she said quietly. I should have been honest with you. I didn't respond immediately. Then I said, yes, you should have. She tried to continue, but I cut her off. I don't want your apology, Catherine. I want your silence. Consider this our goodbye. I hung up. That was the last conversation I ever had with my mother-in-law. Within weeks, she publicly distanced herself from Marcus, telling everyone she'd never supported his behavior. She was protecting her own reputation, just like everyone else in their family eventually did. They all abandoned him. When you build your life on lies, there's no one left to stand with you when the truth comes out. The deed to the house arrived in a thick envelope stamped with official seals. I held it in my hands, reading my name printed as the sole owner. The home where I'd cried myself to sleep after finding that black phone. The home where I'd planned my revenge. The home where I'd taken back my power. Now it was completely mine. I decided to renovate it. Remove every trace of him. I painted over the walls where his photos had hung. I replaced the furniture we'd chosen together. I planted a garden in the backyard, something I'd always wanted but never got to do. I hired a contractor to update the kitchen. I chose new lighting fixtures. I picked out new tile for the bathrooms. I was erasing him from every corner of this space and replacing him with myself. With my choices. With my taste. With my future. The renovation took 3 months. It was the most peaceful 3 months I'd had in years. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was just present. Just focused on this moment. Just building something new from the ruins of something broken. After the renovations were complete, I threw a dinner party. I invited my close friends, people who'd stuck with me through everything. People who'd believed me when I told them the truth. People who'd supported me without judgment. We sat around my newly renovated dining table, eating good food, drinking good wine, and laughing. Real laughter. Genuine joy. No performance. No pretending. No smiling through pain. It was the first true celebration I'd had since finding the black phone. I'm so proud of you, my friend Elena said, squeezing my hand. You didn't just survive this. You thrived. I looked around the table at these people who loved me for who I actually was. Not for what I could provide or what role I could play. Just for being me. That was worth more than any house or savings account. That was everything. And then my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. You'll regret this. You'll regret destroying everything. I didn't respond. I just set the phone down and returned to my conversation. There was nothing he could say that would touch me anymore. 2 weeks later, he tried to crash the dinner party I was having with friends. He showed up at my house, pounding on the door, shouting loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Gabriella, I know you're in there. We need to talk. I called the police from inside. 3 officers arrived within 10 minutes. They escorted him away from my property after I showed them the restraining order I'd filed weeks earlier. As they put him in their car, I stood in my doorway completely calm. He was screaming my name. He was thrashing in the back seat. He was absolutely falling apart. And I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not satisfied. Not anger. Not even pity. Just nothing. He'd made his choices. He'd walked down a path of his own creation. Now he was dealing with the consequences. I went back inside, closed the door, and returned to my guests like nothing had happened. Because to me nothing had. He was no longer part of my story. I wrote him one final letter. Not out of love. Not out of anger. Just out of the need for closure. I didn't mail it. Instead, I read it aloud to myself standing in front of my fireplace. You didn't destroy me, Marcus. You revealed me. You showed me who I really am when everything is stripped away. You showed me that I'm stronger than I ever believed. You showed me that I don't need anyone to validate my worth. And for that, I'm almost grateful. Almost. Then I held the letter to the flame and watched it burn. The fire consumed every word. The smoke rose up the chimney and disappeared. It was symbolic. It was cleansing. It was the final moment of letting go. That night a job offer came through. A position at a marketing firm in another city. A fresh start. A new beginning. I'd applied months ago when everything was falling apart. Now that I was whole again, I realized I wanted this. I wanted to move forward. I wanted to build something new. I didn't need this house anymore. I didn't need to stay in this city where everyone knew my story. I was ready to become someone different. 6 months later, I stood in front of my house one last time. The for sale sign was planted in the lawn. It was my choice this time. I looked at the renovated home I'd painstakingly restored, and I felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude that it had been mine. Gratitude that I'd healed within its walls. Gratitude that I was strong enough to walk away. The sun was bright on my face as I turned toward my car. My boxes were already packed. My new apartment was waiting in a city 2 hours away. My new job started in 2 weeks. My new life was beginning. As I drove away from that house, I thought about the woman I'd been when I found that black phone. She'd been broken. She'd been scared. She'd felt like she was disappearing. But she'd also been stronger than she knew. She'd had the courage to fight back. She'd had the intelligence to plan her revenge with precision. She'd had the strength to walk away from everything comfortable and step into something uncertain. He tried to bury me, I whispered to myself as the house faded into my rearview mirror. But I was planting something. And it bloomed beautifully.